The rust-covered relic Captain Maya Chun stepped through the airlock of Nexus Station, wearing what looked like a museum piece that had been forgotten in a basement for centuries. Her armor was a patchwork of dull, rust-colored metal plates that seemed to have been hammered together by someone who had never heard of precision engineering. Cables snaked between the segments like electronic ivy, occasionally sparking and hissing steam from joints that shouldn't have been steaming in the vacuum of space. The helmet under her arm appeared to have been crafted by welding together parts from a dozen different civilizations, creating something that looked more like abstract art than military equipment. The main conference hall of Nexus Station fell silent as she entered. Representatives from 5 of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations had gathered for the most important peace summit in recorded history. Each delegate wore armor that represented the pinnacle of their species' technological achievement. Energy fields shimmered around crystalline matrices, holographic displays projected from neural interfaces, and exotic alloys seemed to bend light around their surfaces. Everything in the room screamed advanced, dangerous, and expensive, and then there was Maya looking like she had raided an antique shop during a power outage. High Commander Zextari of the Krillian Empire paused mid-conversation, his reptilian eyes focusing on the human with predatory interest. His sleek black armor flowed like liquid metal, constantly shifting and adapting to perceived threats. "Is that human wearing scrap metal?" he hissed, his forked tongue tasting the air with amusement. Prime Minister Velthaner of the Zephyros Confederation adjusted her crystalline crown, which doubled as both ceremonial headgear and a sophisticated weapons array. Her people were beings of pure energy contained within crystal matrices, and her laughter sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. Perhaps Earth's invitation was a clerical error. Surely they meant to send someone with actual equipment. The Titanium Collective's representative, designation Alpha 77, spoke through its mechanical voice synthesizer. The collective was a hive mind of cybernetic beings who had long ago abandoned organic components in favor of perfect technological unity. Analysis indicates the humans' equipment predates galactic standard technology by several millennia. Query: is this intended as humor? War Chief Groknash of the Void Reapers, a species that had conquered 17 star systems through sheer brutality, let out a booming laugh that echoed through the chamber. His power armor was covered in the bones of defeated enemies, each trophy connected to sophisticated combat systems. The little soft flesh brings toys to a war council. How delightfully primitive. Even the usually diplomatic ambassador Lysandra of the Crystal Hierarchy seemed taken aback. Her people communicated through harmonic frequencies, and her musical voice carried notes of bewilderment. Perhaps the human representative requires technological assistance? We would be honored to provide more suitable equipment. Station Administrator Quintala, a neutral party from a mediator guild, cleared her throat nervously. Her 4 arms gestured toward the central negotiation platform while her insectoid features tried to maintain diplomatic composure. Ladies, gentlemen, and collective consciousnesses, please welcome Captain Maya Chun, representing the Earth Federation. Maya walked to the center of the chamber with unhurried steps. Her boots made actual sounds against the deck, plating, metal clanking against metal in an age where most beings moved with silent gravitic assistance or energy-dampened footsteps. She set her helmet on the conference table, with a dull thunk that seemed to resonate through the chamber's acoustic dampening fields. "Thank you for accepting Earth's participation in this summit," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber despite having no visible communication enhancement devices. "I know our presence might seem unusual." "Unusual is one word for it," Zextari muttered, his enhanced hearing picking up several small explosions from Maya's armor as she moved. "Tell me, human, does your equipment actually function, or is it purely ceremonial?" Maya looked down at a particularly corroded section of her breastplate where a small shower of sparks was currently providing what appeared to be a light show. "Oh, it functions. Though, I'll admit, it has its quirks." Velthaner's crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated barely contained mirth. "Quirks. Yes, exploding during diplomatic negotiations would certainly qualify as a quirk. Perhaps you should stand further from the rest of us? For our safety, Groknash added, though his tone suggested he found the situation more entertaining than threatening. That pile of scrap might contaminate our superior. Technology. Alpha 77's optical sensors focused on Maya's armor with clinical precision. Spectral analysis reveals the human's equipment contains materials not present in current galactic databases. Origin unknown. Threat assessment. Minimal due to apparent mechanical failure. Lysandra's harmonics took on a sympathetic tone. Captain Chun, while we appreciate Earth's desire to participate in galactic affairs, surely your species possesses more contemporary military technology? This appears to be archaeological in nature. Maya nodded thoughtfully, running her hand along a section of plating that seemed to respond to her touch by changing color from rust brown to deep blue. You're absolutely right. This armor is incredibly old. Some of these components date back to before your civilizations achieved spaceflight. The alien delegates exchanged glances. This was even better than they had hoped. The human wasn't just technologically inferior, she was admitting it openly. Quintala leaned forward, her diplomatic training warring with genuine concern. Captain, perhaps we should postpone this session until Earth can send a more appropriately equipped representative. Oh, this equipment works perfectly for what I need, Maya replied, pressing a control that caused her armor to emit a sound like a coffee pot having an argument with a garbage disposal. It's never failed me in any situation that actually mattered. Zextari's reptilian features twisted into what might have been a smile if reptiles could smile without promising violence. How touching! The human has an emotional attachment to her antique collection, like a child with a security blanket. Perhaps we should provide a practical demonstration. Velthaner suggested, energy crackling between her crystalline fingers. A comparison between our technological capabilities and Earth's might prove educational for all involved. War Chief Groknash stepped forward, his massive frame bristling with weapon systems that hummed with barely contained energy. An excellent suggestion. My people have a saying, the strength of armor is proven by the strength of what it survives. Alpha 77's mechanical voice carried calculation algorithms. Proposal, controlled weapons test to demonstrate the inefficiency of primitive protection against modern armaments. Educational value. High. Risk to human subject. Acceptable within diplomatic parameters. Maya looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Each was a master of warfare from a civilization that had conquered multiple star systems. Their weapons could crack planets, their defenses could stop stellar bombardments, and their confidence was absolute. You want to test my armor? She asked, her voice carrying neither fear nor bravado, just mild curiosity. It would serve as an instructive lesson about the current galactic balance of power, Lysandra's harmonic voice sang, and perhaps encourage Earth to seek more advanced protection through diplomatic trade agreements. Station Administrator Quintala's compound eyes reflected the chamber's lighting nervously. If we're going to conduct weapons testing, I should note that station regulations require proper safety protocols. Of course, Zextari interrupted, drawing a sleek sidearm that looked like it had been grown rather than manufactured. We're civilized beings. Low power settings only. Just enough to demonstrate the futility of primitive materials against modern energy projection. Maya stood perfectly still in the center of the chamber, her arms relaxed at her sides. Around her, the representatives of 5 stellar empires prepared to provide what they assumed would be a very brief and educational demonstration. Whenever you're ready, she said simply. Zextari raised his weapon, its surface rippling with adaptive targeting systems. This is a standard Krillian plasma projector, military grade, but set to minimum intensity. It should be sufficient to illustrate the inadequacy of ancient protection without causing permanent harm. The weapon's charging cycle completed with a musical tone that harmonized with the chamber's environmental systems. Every delegate leaned forward slightly, anticipating what would surely be over in seconds, but As Zextari's finger tightened on the trigger, something changed in the atmosphere. The air itself seemed to thicken, and every piece of advanced technology in the chamber began to emit a low, subsonic hum that made the assembled beings feel suddenly uneasy. But Maya's armor stopped sparking. The random color changes ceased. The mechanical noises faded to silence. For the first time since entering the chamber, Captain Maya Chin smiled. And in that moment, every being present realized that they had made a fundamental error in judgment. The armor wasn't malfunctioning, that IT had been sleeping. When ancient technology stirs Zextari pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt screamed across the chamber in a brilliant arc of superheated energy, trailing ionized particles that should have reduced Maya's ancient armor to slag and vapor. Instead, the energy beam struck her chest plate and simply stopped, hanging in the air 3 inches from her body like a confused firefly. The plasma bolt rotated slowly, pulsing with its own internal light, then gradually dissolved into sparks that fell harmlessly to the deck plating. The silence that followed was the kind of quiet that happens when an entire room full of highly intelligent beings simultaneously discover that their understanding of physics might need revision. Maya looked down at the spot where the energy blast had vanished, then back up at Zextari. "That was interesting," she said calmly. "Usually, it takes a few more shots before the armor decides to wake up properly." "Malfunction," Zextari muttered, staring at his weapon like it had personally betrayed him. He ran a diagnostic scan, and his weapon's AI cheerfully informed him that all systems were operating at peak efficiency, and the energy discharge had been perfect in every measurable way. Velfainer's crystalline form flickered with patterns that indicated deep confusion. The energy signature disappeared completely. That should be impossible. Conservation of energy is not a suggestion in this universe. Perhaps it's specific to Krillian technology, War Chief Groknash suggested, drawing his own sidearm. His weapon was a massive thing that looked capable of punching holes in battleship armor. Void Reaper plasma cannons operate on different principles entirely. He fired without warning. The plasma charge crossed the chamber in a streak of purple fire and struck Maya's left shoulder. The energy didn't disappear this time. Instead, it ricocheted off her armor like it had hit a perfect mirror, sailed across the chamber, and punched a smoking hole through the far wall. Did anyone else see that? Alpha 77 asked, its mechanical voice carrying what might have been the cybernetic equivalent of bewilderment. The plasma bolt achieved perfect reflection. The angle of incidence equaled the angle of reflection with mathematical precision. Quintala was frantically checking her station's hull integrity systems. "Captain Chun, I'm going to have to file an incident report about that wall. Station insurance doesn't typically cover ricochets from impossible armor." Maya rotated her shoulder experimentally. "Sorry about that. The armor can be unpredictable when it's first activating. It's been dormant for quite a while." "Dormant?" Lysandra's harmonic voice cracked like breaking crystal. "Your armor was sleeping?" Before Maya could answer, something extraordinary began to happen throughout the chamber. Every weapon present started to emit soft, musical tones. Sidearms hummed gentle melodies. Rifle-class weapons chimed in harmony. Heavy weapons sang in deep, resonant voices that seemed to vibrate through the station's superstructure itself. Prime Minister Velfainer stared at her crystalline energy projector as it began playing what sounded suspiciously like a lullaby. "This is impossible. My weapon is singing to me." War Chief Groknash held up his plasma cannon, which was now projecting holographic flowers into the air while playing a cheerful tune that sounded like something from a children's entertainment program. "My weapon appears to have developed artistic tendencies." Alpha 77's entire arsenal was performing what could only be described as an orchestral symphony. "Error. Error. This is not within operational parameters. Weapons do not compose music spontaneously." Station Administrator Quintala's emergency response training had not prepared her for a scenario involving weaponized musical performances. All stations are reporting the same phenomenon. Every advanced energy weapon in the system is currently serenading its operator. Maya nodded as if this was perfectly normal. The armor doesn't just protect its wearer. It evaluates threats and responds accordingly. Right now, it's trying to understand the intent behind your weapons. Zextari gestured frantically at his sidearm, which was now projecting holographic images of small animals playing in meadows while playing a tune that belonged in a relaxation therapy session. Understanding intent? It's a weapon. The intent is to shoot things. Yes, but why? Maya asked, her tone genuinely curious. What were you planning to shoot? And why? The armor needs to understand the context before it decides how to respond. The musical performance from dozens of malfunctioning weapons reached a crescendo, then gradually faded to a gentle background harmony. In the relative quiet that followed, Maya began to remove her helmet and
The first time, the assembled delegates got a clear look at her face. She appeared young for a human, perhaps in her early 30s by galactic standard measurements. But her eyes held depths that suggested someone who had seen far more than her apparent age should allow. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. This armor wasn't built by any civilization you would recognize, she began, setting her helmet carefully on the conference table. The metal seemed to shift and flow, revealing glimpses of circuitry that definitely hadn't been visible moments before. It's older than your recorded histories, older than your mythologies, older than your species' first glimpses of the stars. Intelligence Officer Zara Lynn of the Crystal Hierarchy stepped forward, her analytical nature overriding diplomatic protocol. How much older are we discussing, Captain? Thousands of years? Tens of thousands? Maya's expression grew thoughtful. Do you remember learning about the predecessor ruins? The archaeological sites scattered throughout dead systems, containing technology so advanced that even examining it tends to have unpredictable effects on local space-time? Every delegate nodded nervously. Predecessor sites were marked as galactic hazards and avoided by any species with functional survival instincts. The few expeditions that had attempted serious study of predecessor technology had typically resulted in the complete disappearance of research teams, sometimes along with entire planets. This armor was created by the civilization that came after the predecessors, Maya continued, which was then replaced by the next dominant species, who were succeeded by another and so on. It's been passed down through 7 different galactic superpowers, each one believing they represented the pinnacle of technological evolution. She gestured around the chamber with one armored hand. Your 5 civilizations represent attempt number 12 through 16. Congratulations on making it this far. War Chief Groknash's combat instincts finally overcame his confusion. What happened to civilizations 7 through 11? Maya's armor chimed once, a clear bell-like tone that seemed to resonate in everyone's bones. Around the chamber, holographic displays flickered to life without anyone activating them. The images they showed made several delegates step backward in involuntary horror. Dead worlds, shattered fleets, civilizations reduced to archaeological curiosities. The holographs cycled through scene after scene of destruction on a scale that dwarfed anything in recorded galactic history. They made the same mistake you just made, Maya explained, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. They assumed that having the most advanced weapons made them untouchable, that superior firepower was equivalent to genuine security. Alpha 77's optical sensors focused on the holographic displays with mechanical precision. Data analysis indicates systematic destruction of advanced technological infrastructure while preserving biological populations. Conclusion: selective elimination of military capabilities. The armor doesn't just evaluate individual threats, Maya continued. It judges entire civilizations and their worthiness to possess weapons of mass destruction. When a species reaches a certain threshold of destructive capability combined with aggressive intent, it activates a galaxy-wide suppression field. Velthaner's crystalline form pulsed with colors indicating extreme agitation. Galaxy-wide? You're suggesting this single piece of armor can affect weapons across multiple star systems simultaneously? Not just weapons, Maya corrected. All advanced technology primarily designed for warfare. Ships lose their offensive capabilities. Planetary defense systems shut down. Personal weapons become very expensive paperweights. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Supreme General Thex Varian of the Crystal Hierarchy spoke for the first time, his normally controlled voice shaking with barely suppressed panic. For how long? Until the species in question demonstrates they've evolved beyond the need to solve problems by destroying things, Maya replied simply. Some civilizations manage it in a few decades. Others. She gestured at the holographic images of dead worlds. Station Administrator Quintala's diplomatic training was warring with species survival instincts. Captain, surely there must be exceptions. Defensive necessity, territorial protection, the basic right of species to defend themselves from legitimate threats? Maya's armor chimed again, and the holographic displays shifted to show real-time tactical assessments. Military positions, fleet deployments, weapons stockpiles, invasion plans that were classified at the highest levels of galactic security. All of it laid bare for everyone in the chamber to see. The armor has been monitoring your
civilizations for the past 50 years, Maya explained. Every military action, every territorial dispute, every decision to choose violence over negotiation has been recorded and analyzed. It doesn't recognize distinctions between offense and defense when the underlying pattern is expansion through conquest. Zextari's reptilian features had gone ashen. How did you access classified military databases from every major civilization simultaneously? I didn't. The armor did. It doesn't recognize your security protocols as meaningful obstacles. Maya touched a control on her wrist, and her voice suddenly carried to every corner of the chamber without technological amplification. The judgment protocol is fully active now. Your weapons aren't malfunctioning, they're being evaluated. Around the chamber, the musical weapons had evolved their performances. Some were now projecting complex mathematical equations into the air. Others were displaying artistic interpretations of peace and cooperation. A few were simply humming contentedly to themselves like satisfied pets. What happens now? Lysandra asked, her harmonic voice barely audible. Maya smiled, but for the first time, it wasn't entirely reassuring. Now we find out if your civilizations represent evolution or extinction. The chamber's communication systems activated without anyone touching the controls. Priority messages were flooding in from across the galaxy. Fleet commanders reporting weapons failures. Planetary governors requesting emergency assistance. Military leaders demanding explanations for equipment that had suddenly decided to become artistic rather than destructive. Maya's voice carried clearly over the chaos. Ladies, gentlemen, and collective consciousness, you have approximately 4 hours to contact your governments and make a choice that will determine the future of your species. And then every light in the chamber dimmed except for the soft glow emanating from her ancient, impossible armor. The silence of the emergency transmissions flooding into Nexus Station painted a picture of controlled chaos spreading across the galaxy at the speed of light. Fleet Admiral Rexthanes of the Krillian Third Fleet reported that his dreadnought's main batteries had begun projecting children's educational programs instead of plasma death. The Zephyros Confederation's orbital defense platforms were painting murals visible from space. The Titanium Collective's hive ships were broadcasting poetry through their weapon arrays. War Chief Groknash stared at the tactical displays showing his empire's military forces in complete disarray. This is impossible. You're saying one human wearing antique armor has neutralized the military capabilities of 5 stellar empires simultaneously. Maya began walking around the chamber, her boots still making that anachronistic clanking sound against the deck plating. Not neutralized, temporarily repurposed while your civilizations are evaluated. The armor isn't inherently destructive, it just has very strong opinions about how advanced technology should be used. Alpha 77's mechanical voice carried processing strain as its collective consciousness struggled with concepts that violated its understanding of technological progression. Query: what evaluation criteria determine species worthiness? Request: specific parameters for successful completion of Judgment Protocol. That's the beautiful thing about free will, Maya replied, stopping to examine a wall display that was now showing peaceful pastoral scenes instead of tactical data. I can't tell you what choice to make. The armor only recognizes genuine transformation, not performance designed to fool a test. Station Administrator Quintala's 4 arms were frantically working multiple communication channels as reports continued flooding in. Captain Chun, I'm receiving priority communications from every major government in known space. They're demanding immediate explanations for what they're calling the Great Weapons Malfunction. Maya nodded calmly. Tell them they'll have their explanation shortly. Right now, representatives from each affected civilization need to understand what's really happening. She touched a control on her armor, and the chamber's holographic systems activated again. This time, the display showed something that made every delegate in the room take an involuntary step backward, a complete star map of their galaxy, but layered with historical data spanning millions of years. The familiar stellar cartography was overlaid with ghostly images of civilizations rising and falling in waves, species achieving spaceflight, expanding their territories, developing increasingly sophisticated weapons, and then silence. Empty systems where thriving empires had once existed. The technology you call predecessor ruins isn't just ancient history, Maya explained, gesturing to the display. It's an infrastructure. Every major star system, every habitable world, every strategic location in this galaxy sits within a network that's older than most of your creation mythologies. The display zoomed in, showing their current location. Beneath Nexus Station's familiar architecture, vast networks of energy conduits and processing nodes were revealed, extending throughout subspace like the nervous system of some impossible machine. Velfainer's crystalline form flickered with patterns indicating fundamental comprehension failure. We've been living inside a machine. Our entire technological civilization exists because something allowed it to exist. Not something, Maya corrected. Someone. Each galactic cycle, the most promising species is selected to oversee the transition to the next phase of development, to serve as guardians until the next civilization is ready to take responsibility. Prime Minister Lysandra's harmonic voice carried notes of desperate hope mixed with terror. And Earth was selected as the current guardian species? Maya's expression grew serious. Earth was selected because we faced the same test you're facing now and made a different choice. We developed planet-killing weapons and then chose not to use them. We had global thermonuclear war within our grasp and stepped back from the brink. Multiple times. She began walking again, her ancient armor seeming to grow more luminous with each step. The selection process is rigorous. A species must demonstrate not just technological sophistication, but genuine wisdom, the ability to choose restraint over destruction, even when destruction would be easier. Zextari's reptilian features reflected the weight of understanding their true situation. How many species have passed this test in the current galactic cycle, including Earth? 1. Maya's voice carried no pride, only the gravity of absolute responsibility. We've been the current guardians for 3,000 of your years, watching, waiting, hoping that someone would finally break the cycle. War Chief Groknash sank into a chair, his massive frame suddenly seeming fragile. And if we fail? The holographic displays shifted to show real-time data from across the galaxy. Millions of ships hanging powerless in space, orbital stations going dark, planetary defense grids shutting down one by one as the suppression field expanded at light speed. In approximately 3 hours, when the field reaches the edge of inhabited space, every advanced weapon in the galaxy will be permanently deactivated, Maya explained. Your civilizations will retain life support, basic transportation, communication, and industrial capability. But no weapons more sophisticated than kinetic projectiles. Alpha 77's entire collective consciousness seemed to pause as they processed this information. Result: technological regression to pre-space flight military capabilities while maintaining civilian infrastructure. Assessment: survival possible, expansion impossible. Exactly. You get to keep everything that builds and creates and explores. You lose everything designed primarily to destroy and conquer. Maya stopped walking and faced the assembled delegates. The choice is simple. Evolve beyond your need for military dominance or accept technological limitation until you do. Station Administrator Quintala looked up from her communications console, her compound eyes reflecting new understanding. The reports we're receiving, they're not random malfunctions. Every military system is being selectively affected while civilian technology continues normal operation. The armor is precise, Maya confirmed. It distinguishes between tools of creation and tools of destruction. Medical scanners continue working. Weapon scanners don't. Cargo transporters function normally. Military transporters are offline. Even communication systems work perfectly unless they're being used to coordinate attacks. Supreme General Fexverion spoke quietly, his voice carrying the weight of a career military officer facing an impossible reality. What guarantee do we have that this suppression will be temporary? How do we know Earth won't simply maintain galactic dominance through this guardian status? Maya's armor chimed, and suddenly every delegate heard new voices echoing through the chamber. Human voices, but speaking in dialects that sounded ancient even to their translator systems. Guardian Station 7 reporting. We've successfully prevented the Velthani Empire from deploying their stellar manipulation weapons, but they're adapting faster than anticipated, requesting support from the Council. This is Guardian Prime. The Zixtheri have broken through our outer containment fields. All stations prepare for Protocol Omega. We've bought the galaxy time to learn. Let's hope they use it wisely. Final log, Guardian Station 12. The suppression field is stable, but the cost? May the next Guardians learn from our mistakes. The voices faded, leaving the chamber in profound silence. Previous Guardian species, Maya confirmed. Each galactic cycle, the most evolved civilization takes responsibility for overseeing the transition. The role isn't permanent. It passes to whoever proves they've genuinely transcended the need for military supremacy. Velthaner's crystalline voice carried hope for the first time since the crisis began. So, there's precedent for civilizations successfully passing this test. There's precedent for civilizations choosing wisdom over warfare, Maya replied. The question is whether your species can make that choice quickly enough. She checked a display on her wrist. You have 2 hours and 37 minutes before the suppression field reaches full galactic coverage. After that point, the decision becomes permanent for this cycle. Around the chamber, communication systems activated as each delegate began the most important conversations in their civilization's histories. Emergency sessions convened across countless worlds. Military leaders argued with political authorities. Scientists analyzed impossible data. Citizens watched their weapons of war transform into instruments of art and education. Zextari looked up from his communicator, wonder replacing the panic in his reptilian features. The Krillian High Command is reporting something unprecedented. Our warrior caste is standing down voluntarily. They say they've seen the holographic displays and chosen to renounce conquest. Alpha 77's optical sensors focused on incoming data streams. Remarkable. The Titanium Collective's hive consciousness is achieving consensus. We choose adaptation over destruction, evolution over extinction. War Chief Groknash's massive form seemed to shrink as he spoke with his people. The Void Reapers, we voted to disband our raiding fleets. Our warriors want to become explorers instead of conquerors. Prime Minister Velthaner's crystalline form pulsed with colors indicating profound transformation. The Zephyros Confederation formally renounces territorial expansion through military force. We choose cooperation over competition. Lysandra's harmonic voice sang with frequencies that hadn't been heard in the chamber before, notes of peace, hope, and genuine commitment to change. The crystal hierarchy votes unanimously for technological evolution guided by wisdom rather than warfare. Maya's armor chimed once more, a gentle, approving tone that seemed to resonate through the station's superstructure. Around the chamber, holographic displays shifted to show something extraordinary. Across the galaxy, weapon systems weren't just offline, they were transforming. Missile launchers became deep space exploration probes. Plasma cannons converted into terraforming equipment. Fighter craft reconfigured themselves as rescue vehicles. Military satellites began broadcasting educational programs and scientific data instead of targeting information. Congratulations, Maya said simply. You've just passed the most difficult test in galactic history. Station Administrator Quintala looked up from her console, her voice carrying amazement. Captain, we're receiving confirmations from across the galaxy. Military forces are standing down voluntarily. Governments are pledging to redirect military spending to exploration, education, and cooperation. This is actually working. Maya began walking toward the chamber's exit, her ancient armor still glowing with that soft, warm light. The real test starts now. It's easy to choose peace when you have no choice. The challenge is maintaining that choice when nobody's watching. She paused at the chamber's entrance and turned back to face the assembled delegates. The armor suppression field will remain active for exactly 1 generation, long enough to ensure your choice is genuine, not just expedient. Use that time wisely. Zextari called out as she reached the door. Captain Chun, what happens to Earth now? Do you remain our guardians forever? Maya smiled, and this time it carried nothing but warmth and hope. Earth gets to do what we've been hoping to do for 3,000 years. We get to explore the galaxy alongside friends instead of watching over subjects. As the chamber door closed behind her, the 5 representatives of stellar empires sat in contemplative silence, listening to reports from across the galaxy. Fleets were standing down. Armies were disbanding. Research installations that had been devoted to weapons development were redirecting their efforts toward medicine, environmental restoration, and deep space exploration. For the first time in galactic recorded history, the universe was choosing peace not because it was forced to, but because it was ready to. Outside Nexus Station, the stars shone a little brighter, as if the galaxy itself was celebrating the dawn of a new age.